Hello and welcome to this edition of The Nation. I'm Jessy Chahal. In conjunction with World Autism Awareness Day on 2nd April this year, today's discussion will focus and explore the challenges faced by individuals with autism and their families and how we can create a more inclusive and supportive society. We also take a look at the experiences and expertise in navigating the landscape of autism in Malaysia. Joining me in the studio today is Muhammad Adli YAHYA, founder of Autism Cafe Project, and also we have the director of Early Autism Project Malaysia, JOCHEBED, Asst. Welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, World Autism Awareness Day, so much conversation around it, and I'm really glad that we've had you both in the studio before, pre-pandemic, and we are back here again. Highlighting an important topic that is an everyday issue or an everyday subject among so many of us. Let's get right into it. It's around the word autism, I think there's still a lot of stigma attached to it. What do you think is some of the biggest misconception about autism in Malaysia, and are we moving in the right direction to correct them, Adli?
From my perspective, from layman's perspective, it's always this public perception of individual with autism. They are either being highly gifted with extraordinary talent, painting talent, arts talent, whatever it is, or they could be so severe, they have always have tantrums, meltdown, whatnot, It is always that case, because every time, sometimes I met taxi drivers and stuff, Grab driver, and I told them about autism. Oh, autism, tantrum, and autism, extraordinary talent, which is always that.
We always see the extremes, especially.
But this is a spectrum, you have one side, extraordinary intelligence, and you have another side which is severe, but majority are in between.
Right. Jo, do you feel there's other misconceptions as well around this?
Definitely what Mr. Adli said is true, and I think especially, of course, movies that are more sensationalized focus on one of these extremes. And so we know autism is a spectrum, so you have some that are very mildly affected, high functioning, and then you've got severe. But I think for us in our work, what we probably find is still very much around is that early identification piece. So there are still many families that or parents or that kind of don't want to acknowledge if there is a delay. And actually that is probably, as a service provider, that's the biggest challenge, because definitely we know that the earlier the child is identified, the gap is smaller, the behaviors are less severe, you can actually do so much.
Is it not wanting to acknowledge, or is it just not having the tools or the knowledge?
I want to interject to that. Based on my experience, I have a son. He's 24. Joe know him. Lukman. Speaking from the perspective of a parent, those days, the issue for me those days was acceptance. I knew there's something wrong, but I refused to accept that. I wanted a perfect family, me, my son, and my daughter, two of them. As I said, but we got 6.
Planned for 2, but
we got 6.
Congratulations.
But then again, it was that quest that actually turned me into not accepting him as an individual with autism. So I kind of delayed the diagnose.
Understandably.
So if you do that, that actually caused, it was a huge mistake on my side, not able to diagnose him, not able to take action earlier. Because the longer you wait,
the harder.
There you go. There you go.
But also, Ms. Ali, to be fair to your family, you're talking 20 years ago.
20 years back.
So at that time, I mean, EAP is only 17 this year. And even at that time, when we first started, we were having 6, 7-year-olds only come because they were not being accepted into school. Then they come,
then a flag went
like,
up.
hey, what happened? But by that time, the brain is much softer when they're younger. And by 7, it's sort of setting functioning as well. And then the gap, if they're functioning like a 2-year-old, the gap is already like 4 or 5 years. And once it becomes more than 4, 5, 6 years, then the gap, it's quite difficult to narrow or close. It just gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
So I feel for us, from the therapy perspective, or from, actually intervention and treatment, if that sort of like wait and see, that approach was not a wait and see, but act early, really monitor, for the families in the future, the families who are having babies, we really have a PSA to just get an app that can monitor your child's milestones and monitor from 0 the minute they're born. And if you see any delay at all, immediately seek help, because the earlier, it might be nothing, but if it was something, you could straight away do something before the severity increases. So that's really one of the areas I still notice. Even some well-meaning grandparents, well-meaning pediatricians will say, don't worry, every child's at a different pace and all that.
It's always that.
Yeah, the
But
community
that is
sort
so
of still does that.
confusing for families and parents, especially first-time parents. You don't know which route to take.
And what make it worse, those days, as 20 years back, there was no knowledge of it. Imagine there was no internet, whatnot, And what we went to a couple of doctors. The same sentiment, the same reaction was, oh, don't worry, it's a bit, you wait, every child has different progress, you just wait, So that was what we went through,
So you would say the rule of thumb, I think, at this point is, if you feel something is wrong, try to seek some sort of early intervention or advice. But not just accepting it, you went all the way to launching the Autism Cafe project. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how it really came around back full circle in nurturing and caring for your son.
We started this project way back in registered in 2016, launched it on the January 2017. This I did it because my son, my son, He is, as I said, he's neither here nor there, and he has his limitation in terms of physical movements, intelligence, understanding. He was there. I came to the point that nobody will hire him to work. Nobody. I mean, who won't? Just be honest with you, So I rested the fact of that. And, we had a difficult journey. I was to the extreme side. I couldn't accept him. It was really horrible. When you think back, it's really, really something that I don't want to think about, But the thing is, I come to the point that I have to accept him as he is. And when I did that, then it just came to me, I can take care of him when I'm around. And life is, you born, you live, you die. You can't escape that. So what's going to happen to him when I'm not around? So as I say, I rested the fact nobody will hire him. So I knew my son loves water. That was the basis of where we started the project. And I knew I had to create something. I always focus on their ability. That's about it. I don't really focus on their disability. So I knew my son loves water. He doesn't have this extraordinary talent. But he has this ordinary talent of playing with water. He loves water. So the option is for me, if I were to go by myself, it has to be water-based. Laundry, car wash, and cafe. All these 3 items are water-based, But then again, in general, individuals with autism, they have social communication issue, right, Joe? So also always that, So I want that to be in part of the learning cycle there. So I discount out laundry, because laundry, you just give coins and that's about
Job
it.
is done,
if it is car, the car can't talk. But if it's a cafe, there's customer around. So that creates an opportunity for me to interact. And true enough, he washed the dishes as clean as you can get. Cleanest, in fact.
Wow.
Right. He took real pride in being part of that.
I don't ask my son to be a CEO or admin assistant. Somebody who washed the dishes, I'm happy with that.
Absolutely. So from that, Joe, in EAP as well, how can we better involve individuals with autism and sort of inculcate or teach them these everyday skills that others take for granted?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, EAP is Early Autism Project, so the primary focus of our work has always been that early intervention, and like what Mr. ADLI is talking about, social communication. So it's a very systematic approach to teaching and when they're below 6, there's an urgency. So you're really chasing against time for that golden opportunity of learning to teach them the basic skills: cooperation, imitation, attention. We call it foundational skills. And then we have these pillar skills of language, play, social skills, independence, and academic. But because autism is a spectrum, the reality is not everybody is going to achieve that rapid learning. So only 50%.
Definitely.
And we always tell, we never showcase our best child. We always tell parents only 50% will catch up, but giving him intensive therapy is going to give him the best fighting chance. So that's the early intervention part. And then as they go to primary, you hope that they can transition to a school. If they're not catching up and they still need special education support, then finding that sort of a good learning environment, and then they progress through secondary, and then you've got vocational options, as what Mr. ADLI is talking about as well.
So they do have a full set of
You need a
syllabus.
full plan. You need a full plan
definitely.
from zero to the time, and so that's why I really empathize with parents that, in those early years, like, it's a lot to take in. Your dream for your child, being mums ourselves, like, you have a dream for your child, and then realizing that it's not just today, tomorrow, it's actually lifelong.
A lifetime.
Yeah, a lifetime. And I think, that's where the challenge of resource, definitely what we see is those who have more resource access more private services and, world-class services.
Comes back to the issue of cost.
Exactly.
But it is, of course, we are trying to raise awareness here in conjunction with World Autism Day. But what you mentioned, Adi, earlier, kind of really just got me there, that the reality perhaps for many segments are that people just won't accept them into society. Who's going to hire them? What can we do about promoting acceptance in that sense? I guess the longer vision, inclusivity at all levels.
I'm not saying that I'm a subject matter expert. What I did was
based
my
on your
intuition, as a father. I knew my son and I knew my boys very well. So what we did is this. We want to change the public perception. They always saw that individual with autism needed help. They always saw that. You mesti tolong. You must help them. You must help them. But yes, you can. But you don't have to do it. You just have to sympathize. You must take action. So what we did was with our boys. We every day, every Friday, or any days for that matter. We get our boys to bake cookies, lunch pack, buka puasa pack. We do crowdfunding. Once we got that, and we send it over to the orphanage, the B40 family, the homeless, And when people saw this, they said, I told them, these are the autistic individual who did this. And they saw, wow. They were kind of surprised, And when we went, we always went out for a pop-up booth, We want the public to see that they are productive individuals if the opportunity is given to them.
Sure.
So we went out. We managed to get a place in Baker Hill, Columbia Asia Hospital, IMU, We put up a table. They make from their house cookies, whatever it is, bake from the cafe. Sell it. People saw it, and they saw it with their own eyes. It's not something that you read, but from exactly what they saw,
And you bought it and they've consumed it and they've literally experienced that part of that journey as well.
So those are the things that we're doing now. We always catch so-called the big fish, the big organization, because the impact are there as opposed to smaller organizations.
Sure.
So we did that, and the perception so far is very good from the public, and the boys are happy. They have functions in their life now.
Absolutely, it gives them a sense of accomplishment as well, achievement, purpose. But also on the other hand, I think people want to help. They want to support. The intentions are good, but there is this gap of awareness, perhaps, and better wanting to better understand the spectrum. But Joe, how can we ensure that families at all levels of income can have access to this, and also provide sufficient education and care for for perhaps their children with autism?
I think that's where the challenge of resource, and I was also thinking about your question earlier about the stigma surrounding autism. I find that one of the mindsets is that autism should be charity or should be free, you know. So then it's
so
a little
right,
bit,
Jo.
yeah, it's a little bit like, you know, if you're a staff member working with autism, you have a great heart, but you don't need a good salary or something, you know. And I think that's where it's so different from Western worlds, where teachers are paid well, special education, because you actually, and so what we would love to see is that it shifts from it just being okay, I just care for you and manage it, but actually this is like an intervention, a medical treatment. And if we thought medical treatment, then immediately our perspective shifts onto what do they need.
Right.
So I feel sometimes then with B40 community especially, it's like, okay, volunteer lah, you know, as long as somebody's taking care of them, you should be grateful someone's taking care of your child. But I'm like, I think, you know, as a developing nation trying to be with UN, you know, SDG goals and all of that, as a country, we could have better education for everyone.
Better access, all levels,
and quality as well. So I think that could be achieved because we definitely have the talent.
Okay, but
it's just how.
If I could just sort of, you know, pinch your brains a little bit more here, how? What would be an immediate possible way? Because government policies, there are these other areas of challenges or barriers, perhaps.
So I feel this is one way where there can be that partnership between the private and the non-private, the private and the government. So that's where in government organizations or non-profit organizations, because they do lack funding, there is a lack of clinical resource or training, inspection, monitoring. So what we've been trying to do through our non-profit initiative, the Hope Project, is actually train. So what we have is we are rich in resource of training because we've just had the opportunity and privilege to be able to learn everything we can about autism. So we want to share that knowledge with another organization and help upscale those teachers. So we've been doing that we've done it with PDK, we've done it with a number of 4 centers already up to date. And with that then, imagine if the government special education classes could also be upskilled in that sense, where their teachers are not just child-minding, but they actually know what to do with every single child. They actually have a great plan.
And this is the point of integration. We talk about exclusivity. We've got these great banners and headlines about exclusivity, but when it comes down, trickles down to the ground, I think this is perhaps one great way that we can actually see that come to
And if I may add in, you know,
excuse me.
You know, the current scenario in Malaysia, for the big organization, they always choose an NGO, kind of non-profit, whatnot. So us, we're not. The thing is, when we set it up, the project, I just want to make sure that it will survive. You know, I'm not saying all the culture of in all NGO in Malaysia is bad, but what I saw is the culture is you wait for people to donate.
Yes.
Then that will be a good advantage for the short term. But for the long term, you don't know how to manage it. You know what happened if there is no donations coming in? So now what we did was we set up a business unit, but it is a certified social enterprise.
Right.
But a big organization, I won't name any organizations, you know, but they are keen to work only with an NGO, not a social enterprise.
So that perception has to change.
Has to change, you know, because if you support us in the long run, you know, you get a better output better than an NGO. I'm not saying that all NGOs is bad. Please correct me on that line. But it would better if, let's say, a big organization also support a social enterprise.
I think it's that mindset between a corporate mindset. But I think every time somebody thinks corporate or private, they think money making. But that may not. And so most
CSR, something
correct.
to park under.
The motivation of a social entrepreneurship is you want to make sure that it's running and profitable and sustainable. Absolutely. But there is a bigger mission. And so that's where with the corporate private mindset, we need a bit more of that into the non-profit. Because that's how I grew up as well, visiting a lot of homes and always noticing the teachers look depressed or unequipped, and then you think, oh my gosh, if we have a child, would we put the child there? You know,
always comes from a place of like lack. There's
exactly. There's not enough funding. There's not enough. So then you don't get the best quality services. Whereas imagine a Malaysia that you have a child with autism, okay, we know what to do. And for us especially, I mean, I'm fully Malaysian. We literally, I kid you not, we have a client in Switzerland who flies our staff to go there. All our staff are Malaysian. So I'm like, from the time of us going to the West for support. The West is coming to us. You're talking about Scandinavian countries coming to us. We have all the talent. That is my whole point of like, we are rich in resource and talent and, you know, capacity and intelligence, but how can we actually partner together to actually upscale, so that one day our dream is that every child can get that service no matter what level of income, through government, through non-profit or through private, but there will be a basic level of quality.
I would say no more a dream, a reality.
We must,
in the future that is impending.
Yeah.
So at the cafe, how can families be involved and how can they make use of the exposure?
Okay, the cafe is not big. You know, at the moment we have 4 of them working, permanent staff 4, and we have 10 part-timers. You know, so if let's say, but we do encourage like you, Joe, no need lah, Joe dah pandai. You know, those who are so-called alien SWOT knowledge of autism, come over to the cafe. We encourage the public to come over. Spend 1 or 2 hours baking cookies with them, so they can see the potential of them. You know, they can see, they can experience it by themselves. Hey, this is autism.
Yeah.
And if you press the correct button, it will definitely be a win-win situation. The project has traveled so far. I'm quite surprised. You know, just chip in what Joe said just now. Today we had visitors from UK. He flew all the way from UK to come over and have a look at what we're doing.
Yeah,
amazing.
And we also have today a couple from India. They own a business over there. And we were talking since before pandemic, you know. So now we have come to the conclusion we want to do something on both sides. So what happened is, they're here now. We are going to collaborate from both ends of our side. They will produce garments made by autistic individuals, send it over here, and the boys will put in beads, glitters, whatnot, and sell it as part of their product. You know, so when you do that, you create an opportunity for the public to see, hey, this is something incredible. We should support this. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do encourage, as I said, as a small scale, we do encourage people to come over. We do encourage as young as 12 years old, come over to the cafe. You know, have some purpose in life rather than not doing anything at home. So they bake, you know, we bake cookies, lovely cookies.
I want to go back to that. Have some. I really want to taste the cookies as well. We'll be taking the kids over soon. But yes, the pandemic, that was really a case of isolation. And as we discussed a little bit before going on air, that structure is important. What impact are you seeing in terms of how that had panned out? And what advice would you give to parents struggling to sort of acclimate the kids back into a social setting?
On our side, the pandemic hit us very bad, but we managed to bounce back. And what we did with the boys now, we understand them now. We understand that everything bad is actually something good will come out of it.
Silver lining.
You know? So what we did with our boys when the pandemic, before the pandemic, it was basically dine-in customer. We rely very much, but if pandemic came in, the boys has no work to be done, you know, so it forces us to think better, you know, as opposed, as I said, as an NGO just wait for donation. So what we did was, instead of waiting for the customer, we find customer. We make meal packs. We give it to the frontliner. We give it to everybody.
So enterprising indeed. But also at EAP, you said it was a chance to reflect internally and do a bit of a cleanup. Yeah.
So for the good that has really come out of it is we were able to launch our. So we've always wanted to train more parents, because that's another way that parents can get good quality service. They become the therapists themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we were able to develop videos, and so now we actually launched that. And then it went into lockdown. So we were like, oh my gosh, we were actually prepared. We had 5 units ready. Everything went up. So parents, please learn. And so then we now have 100 videos. It's called Autism at Home for free. Autism at Home on our YouTube channel, online platform. But parents started to be empowered. They start to follow this. We're getting calls from all over.
And I think
I taught my child how to read and how to speak. Sorry,
and that is the basis, I think,
beauty,
for our discussion today in terms of recognizing World Autism Day as well. I think that term empowerment to the child, to the parent, the caretakers, and to those in the communities as well. The latest annual figure for 2021 has shown that a total of 589 children aged 18 and below are being diagnosed with ASD. That has been up 5% from 562 children back in 2021. And of course, this shows that the number of people or children that have been diagnosed with ASD in Malaysia has risen over the past decade. All this data according to the Ministry of Health. Thank you for being with us for our conversation here, and thank you to both of you sharing and keep going. There's people like you, like really holding up that beacon of hope. That is a reality here in Malaysia. We'll speak to you soon. Keep it locked on to Bernama TV for more updates coming your way. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.